Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to another edition of the Free American Hour. I'm your host. I am Clay Douglas. My guest today is Dr. Jake Wade. And Jake, how are you?
I'm good.
Well, happy Thanksgiving, Merry Thanksgiving, or whatever it is that you do on this particular day.
I am thankful. I'm thankful that I got people like you to work with and a lovely wife, and so far they haven't come and picked me up for being an insurrectionist.
Well, it's close. It's interesting. Now, I've had, over the last few days, I've had some different people on that, and I just had Skip Baker, who's a wonderful artist, and he's really into the Christian identity. He's into the dual seed line theory, and the Jews are children of the devil, which actually corresponds with what Jesus told us. But it's kind of a matter of finding out who's the Jews and who isn't here. And I don't agree with him entirely. Matter of fact, another one of my guests, Misash, but he says we can't have a revolution without violence because that's just the way it's also always been. And I don't necessarily agree with that either, because I think the problem we have is how do you fight evil without being evil? And one of my favorite guests is John Kaminsky. And he is pretty fixated on the Jews. He thinks they're a result of all of our misery, all of our problems. And I just got an email from him, and he's upset because I had Skip Baker on and because I had Eli James on. And so everybody's upset because I've had all these different people. And he even mentioned you because he does not believe he believes that Christianity is just another form of control. And again, I agree with all of these people to some extent, but now it's like, well, God, we can't come on your show, Clay, because well, you had so and so on, you had so and so. Well, I got 20 days of programming here to fill, and I want to present different viewpoints. Now, because I let John Kaminsky on my show, because I've let the other two people, the Skip Baker and Eli James, who helped write the book that you use as a textbook, and I don't have any problems with those people personally, and I enjoy having them on my shows, and I think we had great bit, just like I've had with you. But because somebody doesn't agree with somebody else, all of a sudden I shouldn't have those people on my show. Well, we can't be on your show because you support marijuana. You had Eli James. He changed his name. Well, so what? I changed my name. What does that have to do with it? And this kind of the reason I'm putting this out here in the beginning here is that is the problem that we've got. We can't agree with everything. And it's like, if you don't agree with everything I say, well, if you don't agree with everything I believe, well, We can't be on your show. We can't help you. We can't support you. I'd like to get your opinion on that. And I explained to John Kaminsky that I really appreciate, and I'm helping and been helping with the Timothy Bible College, the Little Red Schoolhouse, The Way Church for years. And you and I don't agree on everything, do we?
Well, I'll start off by saying that's part of my problem, and yours too, with the indoctrination system they call public education.
I call it the public pool system.
It's designed to teach people how to think the way one group wants to think, and I think that's dangerous. We believe that people ought to be allowed to think for themselves, and they don't have to agree 100% on everything.
Now, one of the other things that John Kaminsky mentioned, I have Alfred Weber Lamont or something like that. He's scheduled on my show next month. But he talks about UFOs and time travel, and you know, I said, well, John, I write science fiction. You know, this is good fodder for me to for some of my science fiction. I mean, come on, I write fiction about Lucifer being the good guy, for God's sake. And you know, I know that you know that there's a lot of people that ain't going to agree with me on that, but it makes for really good fiction if you're a good writer, and I happen to be a good writer. Pretty too, huh?
Well,
pretty too, right?
Like the guy that wrote the Da Vinci Code. If you call it fiction, you're not required to be accurate on everything you put in it anyway.
That's right.
Fiction is fiction, and if you start from the premise that Lucifer was a good guy, and then you're absolutely accurate, because biblically he started out that way.
That's right.
So you know, and you have artistic license when you write. I have a different approach because I base everything on the Bible, and I call it truth. And of course, that's what you try to do when you do your news approach, is you try to present truth to people. But whatever label you put on it, you should say truth to. If it's fiction, it's fiction. If it happens to have a link to the truth, so be it. But if fiction is fiction. Anybody that argues with you, and I think you're going about it the right way, because you're preaching how do we become, you know, without becoming evil, how do we fight evil and divide and conquer, let's not do that. When these people are so opinionated, and I'm sorry, I may upset the whole bunch, but when they're so opinionated and self-serving that they cannot adopt, or at least turn the other way a little bit and say, let's not sweat the small stuff, when we have a really big enemy and a really big battle to fight where we need all the troops. You know, you go into the army and you go into a battle. Everybody isn't a sharpshooter with a rifle. Everybody is not qualified to fire a bazooka or to set up on a carrier and fly an airplane. We are multi-talented and we are diverse, and I see no problem with that. You're not going to win any wars without people being able to do multiple things. To try to clone everybody or put everybody in the same box like our public education system's doing thwarts the productivity of a society to the point we can't compete with third world countries in math and science with our high school students anymore. And the colleges, they're not getting into the colleges because they're not as qualified as foreign entrants. So we got a lot of foreign people in our colleges because they're better qualified to get in.
Now, today we're kind of scheduled to talk about Revelations and the Bible study that I attended with you, which we're going to start filming, folks. We're going to start filming our Bible studies, our church services. And Revelation 7:22 says, "Come out of her." And you know what? That's I got looking back on my my website here and in my images, and I've got hundreds of images. And by the way, I've had hundreds of guests on my show, and I certainly don't agree with everything, and nobody does. So I look at this, and this is the way that I try to do. So maybe you can find something useful from what somebody says, and you can discard the rest. You don't have to believe everything. You don't have to believe everything at all. But
well, I read Bible study on Sunday afternoon, or whenever we get together, and y'all allow me to do
that. I don't tell just one story, and it's like I've told you. I don't care whether you're if you want to bang your head against the wailing wall, knock yourself out, I'll watch. You want to stick your nose in the dirt and your ass up in the air, I'll try to keep the dogs off of you. But if you're a Christian and you're a Judeo-Christian and you're praying for God to send you a Cadillac, I'll try to put in a good word so he don't drop it on top of your ass.
Well, I have Mormon friends. I have Jewish friends, and I tell them I'm not trying to proselytize you. What I do really works for me, and if you want some, I'll teach you how to get it. I am not trying to convince them to come over, because apparently one of my Jewish friends and one of my Mormon family friends, they'll tell you it works very well for them. What they're doing works very well for them. Why would I try to tell them you must be exactly like me if what they're doing works?
Now, what I've got here, 7:22, Revelations, what we were going to talk about today, is come out of her. And I found this artwork that's done by Skip Baker, who's attacking Eli James because they're accusing him of being Jewish. And Eli James has AngloSaxonIsrael.com. He's got him listed on this. Somehow they fell apart and they started sniping at each other. But this artwork that I've got is from 18:1 and 18:2 and 18:3 and 18:4 of Revelations. And after these things I saw another angel come down from heaven, having great power, and the earth was lighted by his glory. And he cried mightily with a strong voice, saying, Babylon the great is fallen, and is become the habitation of devils, and the hold of every foul spirit, and the cage of every unclean and hateful bird. For all nations have drunk of the wine of the wrath of her fornication, and the kings of the earth have committed fornication with her, and the merchants of the earth are waxed rich through the abundance of her delicacies. And I heard another voice from heaven saying, Come out of her, my people, that ye be not partakers of her sins, and that ye receive not of her plagues. Now, that almost sounds like science fiction, and you take the mark of the beast, which for 2,000 years we've been wondering what that could possibly mean, and now we got commercials for it on television. So, what I'm going to kind of turn it over to you, because what are they saying? What are they saying in those verses in Revelation? What are they talking about? Come out of Babylon? I mean, is New York City the modern Babylon? Is the World Trade Center or the UN? Is that the Tower of Babel today? I mean, you can take the Constitution, you can take the Declaration of Independence and read it today. Substitute maybe Muslims or Mexicans for Indians, and you've got the same thing being told. There's nothing new under the sun. Doesn't the Bible tell us that too? Are you with me, Jake? Nope. Hold on. We've lost him again. Yeah, I'm sorry. It just dropped. It happens sometimes here. Are you on a cell phone or are you on a home phone?
I'm on a landline.
Okay. All right. So it's my Skype dropped you. What I just said. I read from Revelations. I read from Revelations because we got Revelation 7:22 come out of her. And I was reading from Revelations because I had an image here of Revelations come out of her, my people. Is what it said on the image. It was made by Skip Baker, drawn by Skip Baker, and it says Revelations 18:1, 18:2, and 18:3. And the 18:4, I heard another voice come from heaven saying, "Come out of her, my people, and be ye not partakers of her sins, and ye not receive her plagues." And it's all 18:1 says, "After these things I saw another angel come down from heaven, having great power, and the earth was lighted with his glory." Now, this almost sounds like science fiction to me, but this comes from the Bible. You're the Bible expert. Let me hand it over to you.
You had asked me to reiterate a good portion of what we did this past week on our Bible study, which is the subject, "Come Out of Her." And we, through about half of it, we identified Babylon as money changers or bankers. And if I may, I'm going to support that because I think it eventually ties back into what you've been talking about here, that we are looking at a scenario. Babylon's a way of thinking. It is a system, and we are in that system, been in that system for an awful long time in this world, but you and I both know that it's very easy to lock this into bankers. And I'll give a couple of biblical foundations or proofs of this. In the 8th chapter of John, Jesus is said to have been preaching or teaching in the treasury of the temple. That sounds like bankers. Why would they have a treasury if they're not dealing with money? He threw the money changers out of the temple on 2 different occasions, and I got a different view of this, as I think we all did this past week, in that we now have a tendency to look at the Pharisees and the Sadducees as slash bankers, because they were money, they were doing it markups on sacrificial, and they would prevent people. It came for the time of taxation, with where they didn't have the wherewithal to bring animals with them for sacrifice for the temple. Well, they were selling them at a great markup, and they weren't even first fruits. They were culled out of local herds, or probably the Pharisees' herds. They did the same thing with their money changing, in that they said their money was only acceptable in the temple, and the Roman money that came in was not acceptable because it had the face of Caesar on it. The interesting thing is they were, again, charging a fee for exchanging the money, and they were giving them money with Herod's picture on it, and he was an idiot. He was the worst of all kings. But here they are. Yeah, it sounds like today, but that's what the bankers do nowadays. It hadn't changed much, and this is what Jesus was fighting against back then.
Yeah, so what I've said, what I've told people over the years, and I've even got a film out that says there ain't no such thing as the New World Order. Nothing's changed in 2,000 years. The same people were fighting the same people. We're still fighting the bankers. We're still fighting the Pharisees. We're still opposing them.
You can drive this back historically to China and Taoism, Taoism. It's an old religion, and they just keep painting it a little different and calling it new to dupe people into getting into it. But you're right, it's quite old. There's nothing new about it.
years ago, when I came up, you came up with the Little Red Schoolhouse. I came up with the idea of Liberty Villages on my property in New Mexico. I tried to do that, and I after dealing with this whole New World Order crap and watching the progress they made, and knowing that from history that it was going to get worse, as it has. We've got over 1 million Americans homeless today that had homes before all of this took place.
Well, let's be real honest about what you just said. If we did manage to get back to the Liberty Village ideology, that approach of distancing ourselves from being on the titty of the federal government, then, you know, eventually a baby's weaned. And if we really could get to the point where we weren't dependent on the federal government, they wouldn't have the control over us that they do. That's just a bottom line fact. One of the reasons that we had what happened just recently, and I'm not even sure it was legal, but it just wouldn't have even gotten close if it wasn't for what's known as entitlements, or federal checks going out, or federal programs going out that people are afraid to leave. And if we ever got away from that and did get a little smaller house to live in, and did get back to community, and did change our approach to education, we'd get the old country back that used to work.
It's what, you know, what I said about Liberty Villages. If you can generate your own power from the wind and the sun that God gave us, and you can grow your own food, non-genetically modified, raise your own animals, feed them right, and take care of them and treat them right, then we don't need the banksters and we don't need the government for anything.
Exactly. And that's where all of this eventually ends up going. You went to the get out of her thing. It's the same thing. You go back to Egypt. Egypt's the same as Babylon. You go back to the history of the people under the term Israel. Israel was in a wonderful place called milk and honey, but there was a famine. And they sold their brother. This really fits nowadays. They sold out by selling their brother to a bunch of people that were just passing by on camels or horses or whatever they were on, and they took him to Egypt. Long story short, he ended up, through quite a trial, becoming second in command under the head of the Egyptian government, and because he could understand dreams that the guy was having, they realized there was going to be this famine that came up where it wasn't going to be rain and their crops wouldn't grow. He developed the first silos way back in Egypt, and those silos, they filled up with grain, so they had only food around during that time. And Israel came down from where they were, knowing of this food available, and again, long story short, there was a story